Okay, so now you might be like, what the fuck is Sacrifice and Bliss? A girl rap group from the 80s?
The Spiritual Shitshow Podcast with Suzanne Soul, episode
32. Hello, all you stunning fucking stunners, and welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow Podcast, where we get into the holy calamity the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Soul, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the glowing pearls I've learned along my journey that have helped me and that I hope help you too. Okay, so this is part 5 of that time The Power of Myth Blew My Fucking Mind series, where I talk about the power of myth with author, teacher, mythologist Joseph Campbell being interviewed by journalist Bill Moyers and how it blew my motherfucking mind. Y'all, no joke. Okay, so let's dive in to Sacrifice and Bliss, the Power of Myth episode that might as well be subtitled, Do You Want to Be Happy or Just Keep Playing Out That Trauma Wound Coping Strategy for the Rest of Your Fucking Life? Because that's basically the idea of what Joseph Campbell is asking us, just with more professional tone and a lot less swearing. Joseph Campbell's core idea in Sacrifice and Bliss is not about martyrdom, okay? That's a convo for another day. Sacrifice isn't just about loss, but about making sacred. The word itself comes from sacer, holy, and facere, to make. Campbell says that for ancient societies, the whole earth was a sacred place, whether living on the wide plains under the great dome of the open sky or in a dense forest. Under a canopy of trees, our ancestors saw, felt, and experienced the sacred in everything around them. That's right. Once upon a time, long before parking lots, pumpkin spice lattes, and spiritual bypassing memes, everything was sacred. Like literally everything. Rocks, sacred. Trees, sacred. Blood, breath, bone, bread, thunder, dreams, death, all sacred. There was no separation between the divine and the ordinary because early humans didn't have that neat little binary. They didn't clock into jobs and then clock into God. They lived inside the mystery, and the mystery lived inside them, and they were aware of it. Why? Because they had no illusion of control. Storms happened, crops failed, people died, mammoths didn't always show up on schedule. Life was chaotic and vast and terrifying and beautiful. So they responded by mythologizing it all, wrapping awe in story, ritual, and reverence. They didn't understand the cosmos with science yet, but they sure as hell respected it. That's where myth was born, not to explain, but to relate, to stay connected, to survive the vastness without going insane. But then we got clever. We started domesticating things, animals, plants, each other. We built walls, cities, temples, bureaucracies, religions. We started carving up land and time and meaning. We decided this thing is holy and that thing is not. This guy speaks for God, but not you. This day is sacred, but that one's just Wednesday. Instead of living in relationship with the sacred, we started trying to manage it, like we like to do. And that's where we went from awe to dogma, from myth to manuals, from ritual to performance. We traded mystery for certainty, spirit for system, and reverence for efficiency. Enter the Industrial Revolution, the scientific method, capitalism, and modern religions, and boom, the divine is no longer in the dirt under your nails. It's now in a building, on Sunday, in a man-made hierarchy, or in your Amazon cart under spirituality supplies. We've anesthetized ourselves with noise, consumption, numbing, and hustle. And deep down, we're fucking starving for the sacred we exiled. But we didn't lose the sacred. We just lost access to it by deciding it lived somewhere else. One of the stories Campbell and Moyers talk about is the pygmy legend of the little boy who finds the bird of the most beautiful song in the forest, and he brings it home and asks his father to bring food for the bird. And the father doesn't want to feed just a bird, and the father kills the bird. And when he kills the bird, he kills his own life, and he dies. And the legend says the man killed the bird, and with the bird he killed the song, and with the song, himself. And Campbell says it's about how we can destroy our own human nature when we let the mind and ego and shoulds and shouldn'ts run the show. And Moyers asks him, isn't mythology the story of the song? And Campbell says, mythology is the song. It's the flight of the imagination, inspired by the energies of the body, and it is life. I know. He is something else, that Joseph Campbell. So these stories evolved as we evolved, and as our ancestors turned from hunting to planting, the seed became the symbol of life, death, and resurrection. The plant died, was buried, and its seed born again. From death comes life, from sacrifice, bliss. Any hoodles, that's why the sacrifice in mythology is always so dramatic. The gods don't want your leftovers, babe. They want your heart and soul. Da-da-da-lee-da-loo, heart and soul. Anyway, you know what they want. They want it all. Campbell told his students at Sarah Lawrence College, you don't have to go on a pilgrimage to find your own sacred place. A sacred place is where you can experience and bring forth who and what you are and what you might be. It's a creative incubation, and that can be anywhere that you make your sacred place. Your room, your favorite spot on the couch, sitting by the lake, the beach, taking a walk, whatever. In your car can be your sacred place. Look at all the TikTok videos they make in there. That seems pretty sacred. And at first, you may find that nothing's happening in there. But if you have a sacred place and you use it and take advantage of it, something will happen. So we're not just giving things up, we're giving them upward, offering them to something higher, surrendering. And it always comes back to surrender, doesn't it? For crying out loud. Okay, so now you might be like, what the fuck is Sacrifice and Bliss? A girl rap group from the 80s? No, but that would be cool AF. Sacrifice and Bliss. That cosmic joke the universe pulls when you have to give up all your bullshit in order to be happy. But your bullshit is also your emotional support bullshit. Okay, so now you might be like, your bullshit is also your emotional support bullshit? WTF does that mean? Okay, so you know that self-sabotaging habit you hate, but also secretly rely on to feel like you have control over life? Yeah. That's your emotional support bullshit. Your perfectionism, your martyrdom, your I can fix them syndrome, your I'll just shrink myself so no one gets mad dance. All of that is your custom-made, emotionally crusty, anxiety-flavored coping strategy, and the bullshit works. Or at least it probably helped you survive some actual real shit. Childhood chaos, abandonment, betrayal, feeling invisible, being sensitive in a world that gives gold stars for emotional numbing. Just when things start to feel out of control, it steps in and says, don't worry, babe, I got this. We'll just stay hyper-vigilant, overachieve, never ask for help, and pretend we're totally fine while crying in the Whole Foods parking lot. Did I just see somebody I know? OMG, I don't want them to know I have feelings. So when we talk about sacrifice for bliss, it sounds noble. But what you're really doing is putting down the emotional support bullshit. And that shit doesn't go quietly. It clings, it panics, it makes us stink. Had to. It brings you photo memories. Look, remember when we avoided vulnerability and didn't get hurt? That was me, motherfucker, your emotional support bullshit. Letting go of your bullshit isn't just about willpower. It's about grieving a version of you that tried really hard to keep you safe. That bullshit might be maladaptive as hell, but it's familiar. And familiar equals safe. even if it's also making you spiritually constipated. In Sacrifice and Bliss, Campbell's take isn't just about bloody altars and goat smoke, but it's about that too. It's about offering the parts of yourself that are clinging to comfort, control, or safety in service of your calling, your dharma, and your bliss. Because remember what Joseph Campbell continues to reiterate throughout the entire Power of Myth series. The myths, the stories are about you and your inner life and about navigating this thing called you. And what he's saying is what you sacrifice is the known for the unknown. You give up the false self, the one built to be liked, accepted, and never rock the boat, to be who you really are. And that's the bliss. But guess what? To get there, you might have to ditch the map. And for people like us who are taught to survive, not thrive, that feels like fucking death. Campbell recounts a Native American Algonquin story about a boy who was concerned for his father, a hunter who was getting old, and thought, isn't there some other way to get food besides hunting? And he thinks about what the answer could be. And then the boy has a vision of a young man coming to him with feathers in his hair. And the young man invites the boy to a wrestling match and allows him to win. And this occurs 3 or 4 times. But then he tells him, the last time I come, you must kill me and bury me and take care of the place where you will bury me. And when the young man comes again, the boy kills him and plants him as he was instructed and takes care of the place where he buries him. And one time, when he returns to where he buried the young man, corn is growing there. And Campbell says it came to the boy out of his intentions. He was thinking about what the answer could be, and the divine heard his call. So what's the deeper point here? It's about what has to die in us for something new and vital to grow. The young man in the myth is the part of us that is our divine and transformative nature. The part that says, if you want the thing that feeds your life, your purpose, your bliss, your corn, you have to be willing to let go of what you know and let it be buried, and have to be willing to end something sacred for something even more sacred. Campbell's pointing out that sacrifice isn't just transactional. I give up this so I can get that. It's death for rebirth. It's loss for revelation. That corn doesn't grow unless you kill and bury the thing you're attached to. In real life, that might be a relationship you swore you could fix and manage, but you really can't. A job that funds your survival, but starves your soul. A version of yourself who plays by the rules not to rock the boat and is dying inside. And just like in the myth, what's beyond what we know is a mystery we can discover. Or not, it's up to us, but we have to let go of what we know and be willing to experience the death of it. And that ain't easy. And that's why these stories are so important and have to be told, because in real life, we don't always get to see the corn, aka bliss, until after we've done the burying. Bliss is what emerges when you stop clinging to what isn't you anymore, when you let the sacred death happen. Campbell says the hero in myth often has to remove the mask of who society told them they are. They have to leave the village, the expectations, the shoulds. That's the fucking sacrifice. And it is scary, especially if your identity has been your survival suit. It's like saying, thanks for keeping me safe, mask. Now I need to breathe. You give up your social identity, even your role as the good daughter, although I was never that. Sorry, guys. I was more of a rabble-rouser myself. I was never that person, but I tried to be that person. And so, it's still a thing. Or the obedient employee, or the safe version of yourself, so you can become the self with a capital S, the soul. The unmasked, weird-ass, radiant you who talks to trees and cries during toothpaste commercials. I mean, some of them are really heartfelt. One of the most mind-blowing things Campbell and Moyers talk about in Sacrifice and Bliss is Nietzsche's 3 transformations of the spirit, which is the prologue to Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And it goes something like this. When you are a child, you are a camel. The camel gets down on its knees and says, "Put a load on me." This is obedience. This is receiving the instruction, information that your society knows you must have in order to live a competent life. When the camel is well loaded, he struggles to his feet and runs out into the desert where he becomes transformed into a lion. The heavier the load, the more powerful the lion. And the function of the lion is to kill a dragon. And the name of the dragon is Thou Shalt. And on every scale of the dragon, there is a Thou Shalt imprinted. Some of it comes from 4,000 years ago. Some of it comes from your early years. And some of it comes from yesterday morning's newspaper headlines. When the dragon is killed, the lion is transformed into a child. An innocent child living out of its own dynamic. And Nietzsche calls it a wheel rolling out of its own center. And it's when you become a mature individual. Thou shalt is the civilizing force. It turns a human animal into a civilized human being. But the one who has thrown off the thou shalts is still a civilized human being because he has been humanized, you might say, by the thou shalt system. So his performance now as a child is not simply just childlike at all. He has assimilated the culture and thrown it off as a thou shalt. It's like you mastered the rules so you could learn to live beyond them. But you needed the rules to start with, or it would just be chaos, and you'd end up wearing a blanket made of squirrel eating raw chicken on the side of the road. Basically, what I'm saying is it all counts toward your self-actualization. And Campbell says this is the way of the artist as well. You go to school and you study art. You study the techniques, you study the rules, and the rules are put upon you by a teacher. Then there comes a time of using the rules, not to be used by them. And one way is to follow your bliss. Follow the activities and pursuits that bring you the most joy and sense of purpose. Follow your feelings, follow your intuition, and that's how artists learn to find their own voice, aka their bliss. Campbell says that when people don't follow their bliss, when they hear the call and say, "Nah, I'm good," they miss the fuck out. Because the soul doesn't give a shit about your 401k. It wants the full Monty, babe. It wants the joy that costs something. And if you don't give it that, it starts eating you from the inside out, Campbell says. So what are we sacrificing? The illusion of control, the comfort of conformity, the familiar pain that keeps us small, the roles we play to survive that we've been playing to survive, and it's time to live. And what do we gain? Alignment, a life that feels like our own. A sense of aliveness that isn't dependent on applause, likes, or external validation. Now you might be like, hold up. Isn't Sacrifice for Bliss really just about giving up your time, energy, party time, and sleep to work on something like a goal or dream? Now, that is a juicy twist in the Sacrifice convo, and yes, it's a different flavor of sacrifice with its own set of spiritual side effects and occasional identity crises. When you're sacrificing time, sleep, energy, TV show marathons, 4-hour Saturday brunches, and everyday fuck-aroundery to build something, a dream, a business, a purpose, a healed-ass life, what you're sacrificing isn't just comfort. You're sacrificing the present moment's indulgence for a future vision. That's discipline, devotion, and sometimes straight-up delusional faith in the unseen. I mean, how cool is that? Hi, entrepreneur life. Hello, artist. And that kind of sacrifice can lead to fulfillment, resilience, and self-trust, soul expansion, and moments of bliss. Sacrificing your time, energy, sleep, or Saturday sexcapades to build your dream doesn't guarantee bliss unless you give up that funky cold control too. But it does cultivate meaning. So yeah, sacrifice your time for a vision that lights you the fuck up. Just know you can't chase bliss like it's the finish line. The road to your bliss is littered with roadkill of your old beliefs and identifiers, and it ain't easy. Because your bullshit isn't just baggage, it's your former security blanket with teeth. It's the part of you that tried to parent yourself with fear because love didn't feel reliable. And when you sacrifice it, you're not saying, fuck you, old me. You're saying, thank you for getting me this far, but I'm ready to walk now instead of crawl. That's the bittersweetness of growth. You have to leave behind what once saved you to become someone who no longer needs saving. And following your bliss doesn't mean just do whatever feels good. It means go towards what feels deeply true for you, even if it breaks your heart open. You want bliss? You might have to sacrifice your need to be right, the approval of people who don't even like themselves, and the version of you who settled for half-assed love because the full-assed love felt too risky. And a lot of those things feel like safety. They feel like identity. Like, who are you even if you're not the girl who people pleases her way into migraines and resentment naps? Campbell speaks of the sacrifice and bliss of the Catholic Mass and says that in partaking in the Mass, you are participating in the ritual, in this mythic structure. You are reenacting the journey of the soul, sacrifice, death, rebirth. You're not just a spectator, you're being invited into the mystery of giving yourself to something bigger than your limited self. I believe this invitation is present in our everyday lives, and we may not see it. And myths personify it. Look at the altar. Look at the myth encoded in ritual, the message, you must die before you die. Give up what you cling to step into something bigger and live more wholly, as in whole, W-H-O-L-E. See what I did there? I think when you make an intention to live authentically or become free, you're going to experience some wreckage, and it might fucking hurt, especially when you aren't aware of a lot of the shit you've been clinging to. The ideas, beliefs, limitations, demands you've had on others, clinging to that shit with all your motherfucking might. And life, spirit, the universe is like, listen, you said you wanted to transform and become free. So, that's my cue, right? Now I have to clear the way for you and get all the stuff that's blocking you from your freedom out of the way, okay? So just FYI, when the wrecking ball comes through to clear what needs to be cleared, and you're like clinging to these old structures like plastic wrap clings to itself, the harder you cling, the more it may hurt, boo. But at the same time, this shit usually happens, and it's actually part of the process even, so don't be too hard on yourself. And also, there will be times when you feel like you're just sitting in the rubble of your life, because you kind of are. You just might not know it's well-intended at the time. When Campbell says that Jesus and the Buddha find their bliss through going through the world's suffering, we may look at that like we're looking at the world from the outside looking in at the collective, like it's separate from who we are. But hear me out. What if it's that we are all so connected that we're one life experiencing itself in a gazillion different ways? Then we can feel a kinship with these spiritual masters. Thusly, by saying they have gone through the world's suffering, I think Campbell's talking about the universal suffering we all experience of being human. The pain of embodiment, ego, loss, love, longing, aging, betrayal, doubt, fear, failure, all the messy, glorious bullshit that comes with having a beating heart and a body that's going to die. Did you not know that? And instead of bypassing that or trying to float above it in some spiritual hot air balloon, Jesus and the Buddha both enter it consciously. They say, yes, I will feel all of this. I will walk into the fire. I won't try to escape it. and I know I will transform through it. They don't say, life is too messy. I don't want to deal with it. They say, this mess is the path. The wound is the portal. They find their bliss not by escaping suffering, but by embracing it and discovering what's in it and what's beyond it. They trade comfort of ego for the freedom of their soul. And disclaimer, when I talk about sacrifice and pain, I don't mean suffering at the hands of another person's abuse. That is different. The point is for you to be walking the path of your freedom and evolution, not a path so Bob will finally appreciate you. Okay? If you're making your sacrifice about getting another person to love and accept you, you're doing it wrong. This is about you and the divine nature of your being and your humanity and evolution. That's the conversation. So don't get it twisted. Anywho, the bliss Campbell talks about is the kind of inner peace that blooms after we've been shattered and still choose to love anyway. The kind of suffering we all go through. The grief of loss or death, loneliness, the pain of watching yourself fuck up again, even though you know better. The ache of loving someone who doesn't love you back. Shame. The heartbreak of being misunderstood. The fear that you'll never be fully seen. The quiet panic of not knowing why the fuck you're here. Because real bliss isn't manufactured. It's earned. Not by working for it, but by letting go of everything false that stands in the way of it. Okay, so real quick, I just want to say from my own experience and understanding, if you feel like I'm not strong enough to walk a path like that, don't feel bad. Some of us may need more time to develop psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally. Learn to crawl, then walk, before we run with the wolves. And don't be ashamed if you're still trying to grow enough to handle life. You're not alone. Many of us start our paths feeling like we have to learn to crawl first. Just keep working toward your healing and continue to grow and learn. And one day, you'll turn around and realize that even when you were learning to crawl, you were on the path too. It's just easier to see that once you're beyond that phase. Bliss can be found in the very act of meeting your own suffering with presence instead of denial. Then suddenly, bliss becomes available in the mess. That's what Jesus and the Buddha model. Not escape, not numbness, not even solutions, but reverence for the human condition enough to feel it all and still say, and this too. Near the end of Sacrifice and Bliss, Moyers asks Campbell, how would you advise somebody to tap into that spring of eternal life, that joy that is right there? And Campbell says, we're having little experiences all the time, which may on occasion render some sense of this bliss, a little intuition where your joy is. Grab it. No one can tell you what it's going to be. You've got to learn to recognize your own depths. Then Moyers asks, do you ever have this sense when you're following your bliss, as I have at moments, of being helped by hidden hands? And Campbell says, all the time. It's miraculous. I even have a superstition that's grown on me as the result of invisible hands coming all the time. Namely, that if you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you, and the life that you ought to be living is the one you're living somehow. And you can see it. You begin to deal with people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open doors to you. I say, follow your bliss, and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be. So be gentle with yourself, you brave motherfucker. Sacrificing your comfort zone is holy work. It's not clean or linear. It's messy and sacred and sometimes smells like sage and old drama. It's the sacred act of handing your old self to the fire so the real you can walk out glowing. All right, you amazing motherfuckers. I don't even have to tell you how much I love this conversation about Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth series that blew my motherfucking mind. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the Spiritual Shit Show podcast. My name is Suzanne Soul, and I will see you on the next one. Wrote it like you made it, motherfucker.